for you today in Detroit. My sobriety date is August 15th, 2016. I am a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, calling to you guys from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I started my journey a long time ago when I kind of first started feeling these feelings of inadequacy. I grew up on the east coast of Canada. I had a really good middle class upbringing with my family, and my parents got divorced and I relocated across the country. And when I relocated across the country, I was the new kid in school, didn't have any friends, and I felt alone. I felt like I didn't fit in, and I became a chameleon. Because when you're going into grade 7, you're the new kid in school, you want friends. And so I became whatever I needed to be to fit in wherever I needed to fit in. So if I was hanging out with the kids that played sports, I played sports. If I hung out with the kids that were into music, I was into music. And I always just kind of became a chameleon, going with the flow wherever I was. And that continued all the way through my high school years. I wore a mask. I had a different mask for a different group I was with, and I was always playing a role. It was a role outside of myself. So, I was Richard's perfect daughter. I was so-and-so's pretty girlfriend. I was the so-and-such and such on student council. I was the honor roll student. I never was just Kim, the funny girl that you got to hang out with. It was always Kim was something to somebody. I got introduced to alcohol at the age of 16, and I immediately loved it. It gave me a sense of, ease and comfort, like it says in the book, but it made me prettier. It made me taller. It made me more confident. It made me more attractive to the boys. And I loved it. I felt I fit in social scenes. It was my social lubricant. I could be more me when I had alcohol in my body. I drank alcoholically from the start. I blacked out the first time I drank. I thought everybody blacked out when they drank. And that carried into my adult years where, I would get blackout drunk and I would soil myself, and I would wake up in a pool of my own urine in my mattress. And that was the mainstay of my drinking career. It was constantly making a fool of myself, embarrassing myself one more time. And I didn't know that wasn't the way other people drank. I thought everybody else drank like that. I was young. I was in my 20s. I was in the bar scene. I was working as an exotic dancer. I was going to college. And, that was just the scene I was in. Everybody drank like that. Everybody partied like me. So there was no problem. I didn't know that I also was struggling with these feelings of inadequacy, right? Like at night when I was at the bar, I was in the limelight. Everybody wanted to be my friend. But again, I was playing a role. I was an exotic dancer, so I had a stage name, and that was the character I played to the world. That was the girl I really wanted to be. But I could only be her if I was drunk or high. During the day, I would envy the girls that had friends to hang out with. They would go to the mall together, or they'd go to lunches together. I never had those friends. During the day, I was by myself. My phone never rang. Nobody ever called me. I was lonely. I was always by myself unless I was in the bar. So I spent all my time at the bar because it was the only time I had people around me. And it was the only time people cared who I was. That would change when I met a man and I decided I was going to leave all of that life behind me. I was going to grow up and settle down. I was done university. I was entering the corporate world. So I was going to leave all of my past behind, and I was going to settle down, get married, have children. And, that was the role I was meant to take now. I had the white picket fence. I had $1 million home. We had beautiful cars in the driveway and a boat in the garage. And I still didn't feel good enough. Now I had this shameful past. I'm working in the corporate world with people who didn't have deep, dark secrets like I did. And I was always looking over my shoulder. What if somebody found this out? What if somebody recognized me and realized that I was that girl from the bar? So again, that struggling with the worthiness, not feeling good enough, and always having that shame, that guilt, that remorse about my life. I drank at home every night. If not more on weekends than during the week, but alcohol was a mainstay in our house. That's what adults did. Adults drank. As I got up into being in the executive world, I thought I had arrived where I had a box of wine in my fridge. I was entitled. I deserved that box of wine in my fridge. I deserved those party favors to keep me going because I was fancy. right? I was not a low bottom drunk. I was a high class. I could do the fancy drugs on the fancy platters, and I could have the fancy alcohol because I thought I was better than. It all came crumbling down when my husband lost his job. Again, everything revolved around everybody else. It never revolved around me. And he started to resent the fact that I was going to work and he was at home. I then took on the role that he was meant to play and be the breadwinner, and domestic violence entered my story. And that was a really good reason to drink and use. And I started medicating 24 hours a day. I would be drinking my wine from the time I got off of work until like the time I went to bed. I'd be adding in other substances. And then in the morning, in order to get through my day, I needed anxiety medication and antidepressants. And pain pills became part of my story, and I was abusing it. I didn't think I had a problem because it's glorified. I'm an upper middle class girl in the suburbs, and this is what other upper middle class moms do. We all drink wine to cope, and we all take pills. And you know, these pain pills are prescribed by my doctor, so there's not a problem with me. This is what everyone else does. Every other mom walking to school with their kids has wine in their coffee cup in their stroller, because this is the norm that I thought. This was the scene that I thought. I left my husband, and I thought that all my troubles would be behind me because that was my problem. My problem was him. He had a problem with drugs and alcohol. He was abusive. I was miserable because of him. And so when I left, I thought, you know, my life's going to improve. Everything's going to be amazing. But now I found myself with even more of an identity crisis. See, I had been the perfect wife. I had been the perfect mother. I had been the perfect employee. And now I'm not a wife. I'm only a mother 50% of the time. So who am I? I had no identity other than my role at work. Again, I'm always playing a role of someone else. I was never just Kim. That weighed on me. I didn't feel like I had friends. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. The weeks I didn't have my kids, I was alone. So I started dating men I probably shouldn't have dated to fill the void because, you know, I identified as a girlfriend. I needed a man to complete that picture for me. I didn't have kids, so I was lonely, and I didn't resent a mom. So I would go to the casino, so I wasn't sitting at home in myself, feeling like crap. I would sit next to old ladies and just talk to them because I didn't have anybody else to talk to. There were nights where I would call the kids' help phone or the radio station, not because I thought I had a problem, but because I was lonely and I wanted someone to speak to. Luckily, by the grace of God, certain things started to play in my life, and I call them now the fingerprints of God, where, you know, little things started to happen, which brought me to where I found myself. I met a guy on a dating site, and he was sober, and I'm like, well, that's great. A bad boy that doesn't drink, there's my solution. He's not going to abuse me. He's not going to cheat on me. He's got spiritual principles in his life, so that's going to be a good fit for me. And so, you know, I wouldn't drink or use much around him, and so I thought I was doing well. Until our relationship was kind of rocky, and I found myself at Chuck E. Cheese on a Sunday afternoon with my kids because they served wine at 2:00. And I'm going to the bathroom and doing other substances in the bathroom at Chuck E. Cheese while my kids are playing. And then driving home, spraying body spray and chewing gum so nobody has a clue what I've been doing. And he started to notice, and he said, I think you might have a problem. I'm like, no, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. And by now, he's starting to abuse my prescription pain pills and giving me excuses that he hurt his back at the gym. And it eventually all came apart with him, and he relapsed. But again, by the grace of God, he had been in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for 3 years prior. So he had a support system that swooped in almost immediately when he relapsed. And they got him into a detox center and into a treatment center here. And with him going to treatment, I became the good supportive girlfriend. Again, I'm going to help him get better because he has this problem and he's in treatment, so I have to be supportive. So I started going to the treatment center like the good codependent girlfriend that I was, and I went to meetings with them. At the first meeting I sat in, I was picked to share, and I said, oh, no, I'm not part of this. I'm just here for him. Thank you very much. I'll just take this seat right here. And Of course, my God has a funny sense of humor. And 15 minutes later, I heard my story. And I went, oh my gosh, why is this girl talking about me? Like, how does she know all these things about me? Why is she saying all these things about me? And then she started to talk about the fact that this was her experience and how she got brought into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous by a family member and how she had found this solution. And she started identifying as an alcoholic. And like a bus crash in a movie, my life kind of started to make sense. All the little episodes that I had experienced before kind of start to piece together. And I went, oh no, that's my problem. And I realized that first meeting that I was an alcoholic addict. And I started to come back because I was interested. I wasn't sold, but I was interested. I went to the next 3 meetings the next 3 days, and I continued to hear stories that kind of gave me little glimmers of hope. And finally, in the 4th day, it was a Wednesday, and I remember exactly what chair I was sitting in, and they picked me to share again. And for the first time, I stood up and I said, hi, my name is Kim, and I am an alcoholic. And it was like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. It was like I had finally found my identity. Strange to be that it was Kim and I'm an alcoholic, but it just made sense. That was the first time I just identified as me being something, standing alone on my own 2 feet, not attached to someone else. And I started coming back to that same meeting every week because it felt like home to me. There was something about the people in that room and about the way it made me feel every time I was there. So I stuck and stayed. You know, I sat in that chair every Wednesday night and they said, keep coming back, kid. And I'm like, okay, I will. And my partner stopped going. He had this resentment against the program and he used to say, jails, institutions, and death, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't waver me, but I didn't understand it because I hadn't had the same experience as him. So I kept coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and I kept sitting in my seat and I kept not drinking or using in between my meetings. And I got to a year sober. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't have a big book. I didn't have a set of steps under my belt. All I had was a year of being dry off drugs and alcohol, and a home group. I had a little envelope they'd given me with a list of phone numbers, and it sat in a drawer for the entire first year. And I had maybe made 2 friends that I knew from a past life that had said, oh, it's good to see you here. I'm glad you're here. Because they had known I'd had a problem before I did, of course. And so I got to my 1-year anniversary and my really supportive middle-class friends from the suburb thought that we should all go to Palm Springs for the weekend to celebrate the fact that I had stayed sober for my boyfriend. They didn't understand that I had had a problem because I never talked about it. They had never seen me drink or use. So they thought it'd be a great idea to go to Palm Springs for the weekend and reset my sobriety because I had been such a good doting girlfriend. And when I got back from that trip, I hadn't drank. I realized on the airplane down that it wasn't something I wanted to do. I was scared of feeling hungover, and I kind of liked the way I had been feeling the past year, so I stayed sober. I came home and my partner had not. It was Pride weekend in Vancouver, and he had gone out and partied with his friends, and my new home life looked a lot different. I got a resentment, and I was ready to go to the bar. I was like, screw this. I did all of this for you. And again, God interfered in my life, and I was driving to go and pick up, and my phone rang, and it was a friend that I had known before I came in that I had bumped into the rooms, and he said, hey, I haven't seen you at your home group in a while. You know, what's going on? And I just started to cry. And I know that was God keeping me safe. You know, it says that God is our defense against the first drink, and that was my first defense against alcohol. God interfered when I was on my way to pick up that day, and it brought me back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had to look at it from a different way. And I sat and I cried, and I said to now is one of my close friends, I said, she goes, hi, how are you? And I just cried. I'm like, I need to get these tools you guys keep talking about. What are these tools you've got? And she's like, oh, I'll show you. Come on Thursday. My friend has this ladies group. We'll show you these tools. And I'm like desperate. So I did. I showed up to that lady's house on the Thursdays. And keep in mind, I'm just like most girls in this program. When we come into the fellowship, we don't trust other women. I had never had female friends. I was very skeptical, very judgmental. So I went there and I was like, well, I'm not like any of these ladies. But we all sat around in a circle in the living room and we started reading the big book and we started making check marks. Check, check, check. Let's do these steps. You need to get a sponsor. Well, the lady that's hosted was in. She was really nice, but I couldn't relate to her. I was like, there's no way she's going to understand some of the stuff I've experienced or some of the stuff I've done. But I need a sponsor. So, yep, she'll do, right? Because I just want to do what they're telling me and people please and go along with the flow. So there I went. Step one, yeah, my life's really unmanageable. My boyfriend just relapsed and he cheated on me and I'm moving out and I'm sitting here in a room of strangers. Yeah, my life's unmanageable. And alcohol, I'm powerless. Yep, okay, check. I've got step one. Perfect. Moving on, let's go. Because I'm one of these corporate accounting girls. I like these check boxes. I like this stuff. I'm OCD. Like, you give me a list and I'm going to conquer it. Let's go. I'm one of those achievers. Like, let's get a gold star on the top of this checklist of the steps. Step two, came to believe a power greater than yourself. I'm like, oh, no. I am not going to believe in God. There is no way. I grew up Catholic. I am not going there. Not happening. Not today. Thank you very much. Oh, you can just pick anything. You can pick a doorknob. It's going to be okay. You got to believe in something out of yourself. Okay. Well, I watched Oprah and they've got that law of attraction, spirit of the universe. I'll do that. They're like, yep, that's good. All right, check. Step two, this is great. Let's go. Step three, okay, we're going to turn it over to God. Turn it over to God. I'm like, sure, I'll turn it over to God. It's going to make it go away. Okay, yep, let's do that. So here I was checking all these boxes, and it was just that. It was a box check mark. It was a vague idea that I understood something, but I really had no clue what was actually behind the check that I was making. Turning it over to a power greater than myself, those were just words to me. So then I endeavored to do my step 4 and my step 5. And of course, this lady is not going to understand any of these things that I did, and she's going to judge me. So I'm going to leave a few things out when I talk to her. But I'm going to write down a list of all of these people that did me wrong. Of course I am. Resentments, I've got lots. Let me tell you all about how I am a victim. So I wrote a really good victim statement in my step 4. And then I really, really told her all of the things that I thought she would want to hear in my step 5. And then from there, I coasted down the hill of 6, 7, 8, and 9. Amends, yeah, some people, okay, yeah, no, not really. So I really didn't do 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I came to 10 and 11, and I'm like, okay, continue to take personal inventory. Okay, keep writing down people I'm mad at. I'm a victim. Yep, I can do that. Pray, okay. All they kept telling me is, pray, you gotta pray. I'm like, okay, I'm praying. Nothing is happening, but I'm still sober, so I must be doing something right. Step 12, all right, I've finished. I've got my gold star. I can go help people now. This is fantastic. Here I go. I'm gonna go help people. I've done my steps. Check. I've got that big shiny gold star on my page, and nobody was asking me to help them. How do you find these people to help them? I couldn't figure it out. Why is nobody wanting me to help them? I'm done my steps. I'm ready to help you. Are you ready for me to help you? Oh, don't call me at that time. I'm too busy on that day. My kids have baseball. Maybe another day. Oh, you're going to call me and tell me all your problems. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to go. I was still in self. I was still running myself on self-will. I hadn't really turned it over. So how am I going to help somebody if I don't want to listen to anything they have to say because I'm too busy with the life that I'm trying to manage? So I went along the rest of that year, collecting days, sitting in my chair with my lovely step group friends, and the fellowship was really nice. I came up on my 2-year anniversary. I had a wonderful celebration where lots of people said really nice things about me and all the hard work I was doing. But again, I'm still just a dry drunk sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. 2 months later, my ex-husband overdosed and died, leaving me a lone parent and leaving my children without a dad. And I had a bit of a bottom. 2 years, 2 months in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I started to think that something needed to change. And I sat in a new room on a Saturday night, and I heard people talking about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the solution found in the book, and they were on fire. They were excited. These were people that did not come from the middle-class suburbs. They came from the downtown east side of Vancouver, the worst neighborhood in Canada, and yet they were happier than I were. They seemed to be functioning better in life than I was, and I was really curious, really curious. And I stopped being judgmental about their past, and I started to be curious about what they had now. And so I started going to that group and asking people what questions. And right around the time when my husband died, I asked a girl to take me through this rapid set of steps everybody keeps talking about. Because, I just keep going to step group and I am not getting what you're getting. So could you show me what these rapid set of steps are? And the girl, and I never forget, she's like one of the girls from the first 3 meetings I went to my first week of sobriety. And I thought she was scary as. And her name is Emma, total alcoholic. And I was just like, hey, yeah, could you tell me a little bit about these steps that you do? She's like, you want to do a rapid set of steps? I'm like, yeah, please. She's like, call me Wednesday. We'll get started. And we did. And she got this book, which I stole from that boyfriend who cheated on me as I left when I moved out. I said, he doesn't need it anyways. I'm taking the book because I didn't have one at 1 year sober, remember? And it had sat in my little step group for a year. And her and I went through this book page by page. She read me the doctor's opinion. And she explained to me the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. Where all those times I said I wanted to stop drinking and I couldn't, and I'd find myself drinking and I couldn't understand. Or that Saturday afternoon when we went for the girls to the Cactus Club and sat on the patio and one mimosa turned into 50 shots of tequila and me dancing on the bar. It made sense. I actually understood what it meant to be powerless over alcohol. So now I could actually put a real check mark beside step 1. Step 2 kind of was explained to me a little bit more in depth where, I had made a beginning with my universal power and then my little buddy HP that I graduated to. But now it was time to, graduate from kindergarten and talk to God. And we invited God into my life in step 3. It says here in our book on page 62 and 63 that, he provides what we need if we keep him close and perform his work well. Once we take this position, our whole world opens up. And I saw these 2 pages, which are beautifully marked up, in a whole different light. And I invited God into my life. Kim was not good at running the show. When Kim drives the bus, there's kids in the back throwing gum and it's getting stuck in my hair and we're driving through the mud and the trees and the tires are popping on the bus. But maybe it's time Kim stops driving the bus and lets God lead her life. And we're going to let God come into Kim's heart and Kim's going to walk in kindness. And Kim's going to think of others. And I was able to get that concept. I then understood step 3. And then we turned the page and we started to take an personal inventory of Kim. Not an inventory of all of the people that had done Kim wrong. Because all I had ever done in my step 4 was take personal inventory of other people. And then unleashed that crap on someone else in my step 5. So I started to look at myself. And it was explained to me, and how I like to explain it is, we're looking for the things that don't serve us. So when I go and I buy a big basket of strawberries, big, beautiful organic strawberries, and I take them home and I open up the package and there's 2 mushy, moldy strawberries, I need to remove those 2 mushy, moldy strawberries because they're going to ruin all of the rest of that beautiful fruit. And that beautiful fruit is what holds the seed. And that's the seed that I need to plant for God in my life. Because I need to be that fruit for God. And not have those mushy, moldy parts of me ruining all of that beautiful fruit. Because when I'm being that fruit of God and I'm planting those seeds in other people, I'm planting the love of God as I go. So I was able in my step 6 and 7 to remove those moldy, mushy fruits that weren't serving the fruit of my soul. And my life came alive. It came alive. I enjoyed a freedom Like my step 5, I tell you, I could sleep like a baby afterwards. And then like when your house is got asbestos, you got to rip that house down and you got to ask someone to come in and take that asbestos away. So you got to call God up. Hey, God, I got an asbestos problem. Could you come get rid of it? Because I'm not equipped to get rid of asbestos. I don't know the proper way to do it. So I can't remove that asbestos from my rubble. I got to call in the big guns. And God is the only one able to clear that away for me. So my 6 and 7, I was able to be willing to have all of these things that weren't serving me, that were blocking me off from God, removed. And I just asked him for 8 months every day. I prayed for him to take away my defects of character in my step 7. And he did. He did. And I was able to be 100% willing to make all amends in my 8 and 9. Absolutely every one of them. Not because I want to be free, because that's my will. Kim, go do your amends. You want to be free. You want to live in the sunlight of the Spirit. No. Kim wants to serve God. Kim wants to do right by God and the programs of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm willing and able to make all of the amends when and if they come before me. Some which I don't even remember I have to make. And they pop up in my life in weird ways, which are timed perfectly in God's plan. I had a friend that I was her roommate when I was 20, and I was an awful roommate. I left the house in disarray with dog feces on the carpet when I left, and I owed her money, and I hadn't thought of her. She wasn't on my original list. But I have a business that's rooted in recovery, and I ended up meeting her sister. And because of me meeting her sister went back and said to her, hey, I ran into so-and-so, and she reached out to me, and I said, you know why? I owe you an amends. But because she had had the experience with her sister, she better understood my experience. So we were able to have the most beautiful conversation about where I had been when I had made those mistakes. And it was perfect and beautiful because it was done on God's time, not Kim's time. And now I'm able to apply steps 10 and 11 and 12 in my life each and every day and make sure that the train tracks that are the vessel that carries my prayers to God are clear at all times. You see, because if I am the train and I'm trying to get my prayers through to God and there's tornadoes and chaos in my life blowing trees on the tracks, I got to make sure those tracks are always clear so my prayers can always get through to God. Because I need to be in constant contact with him. Because left to my own devices, I'm going to pick up a drink. Or I'm going to make choices that are going to cause me to harm other people. And Kim doesn't want to live that way anymore. I want to be a servant of God. I want to share my gift, my fruit with the world and plant those seeds of hope for God. Because I needed to see that 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Imagine if I had seen someone like me now, all of those years ago. It wouldn't have taken me 38 years to find the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wouldn't be coming up on 4 years sober. I might have had 20 years of amazing life. So it's my job to live in the light of God. It's my job to walk in the sunlight of the Spirit and carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in each and every part of my life. Not just to give those suffering from alcoholism and addiction hope, but to give their families hope. To help the families cope. Because there's a lack of hope in this world right now. And the only thing that's going to open us up to change is if we see hope. Hope is the key to having willingness. If you can want and will all you want to get sober, but unless you see some hope and have that seed planted, it's never going to grow into the willingness you're going to need to get sober. And the open-mindedness you're going to need to have to accept the program of action as outlined in this book. And so by the grace of God, I am so situated now that 90% of my spare time is spent carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. God has blessed me with a business in which that I get to carry a message of hope through my business. I left corporate accounting in order to carry the message of hope in my life each and every day. I want to be a beacon of light to people living in the darkness because I needed to see that. My ex-husband died. My kids do not have a dad because no one gave him hope. I've lost sponsees and friends in this program because they didn't have willingness, because no one gave them hope. So if there's one thing that I can do here today is give you hope. There is a solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there is a God of your understanding that's there, that's going to be by your side. And you don't need to have it explained. I said it yesterday. Just like this cell phone works, I type a text message and I hit go, that text message goes. That's just like my prayers. I don't ever call up the telephone company and say, hey, how does it work? I just know it does because someone else sends me a message back. The God of my understanding sends me messages each and every day that I know He hears my prayers. And so I am blessed to sit here today as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, sharing my experience, strength, and hope with the hope that you find the hope that I found. And I thank Adam so much for having me here today.